Why did you get fired? My manager kept losing my class schedule. Worked at a Subway. I had class 2 days a week. Several times he put me on those days anyway. I gave him multiple copies every time. Owner took me off the schedule for calling out too much. When I showed the owner proof, he said it was too late and they already hired someone else. This was 12 years ago. I'm still mad. A business I went to long ago was hiring and I got the job. Right after I signed all the paperwork, the department manager comes in and asks who I am. I tell him I was just hired as a temp. Manager says he never authorized any hiring and fired both me and my boss on the spot. I did not work for this company at all and they fired me. This isn't why I got fired, but this is why I didn't get a job. I was 16 and looking to work at a Dairy Queen as my first job. My mom drove me to the interview and I was super nervous. She looked me in the eye and said, "Just be honest, and be yourself, and you'll do fine." I walked into that interview and when he asked me, "How long do you think you'll work here?" I responded, "Until something better comes along." For doing my job too quickly and sitting down the rest of the time. Gas station cashier, 3rd shift. Me, why should I stand when I'm the only person in the store? Manager, it's more professional to stand than sit. Me, then why do you sit in your office? I went to the emergency room instead of work. Came back with an ER note and they said, "We won't be needing that. Can you come with us?" I was 18 and it was my first full-time job. I talked my way into a job at a software company when they put a hiring notice in a local paper. I had no idea what the software did. I still don't. They hired me as a trainer and no one ever explained what the product was. I did a few weeks where I was trained on the software, but literally none of it ever made sense to me. It was like they were speaking gibberish. One day I showed up, a lady I had never seen before gave me a check, and walked me out to the parking lot. No one even ever said "you're fired" or anything. It's one of the strangest things that ever happened to me. I refused to come in 15-20 minutes early unpaid for my shift. I was always 5-10 minutes early, but they decided they wanted me there earlier. I carried on as normal, as I'm not coming in if I'm not being paid. Turned up for a 12 p.m. shift at 11:49. No one would look at me when I arrived, then was thrown in a meeting and fired for being late. Was out the door before it even hit 12. It was the only time I've ever been fired. For reporting elder abuse. His wife thought he was having an affair with the office manager. He asked me if I thought it was possible that he was having an affair with the office manager. I said, "It's possible, but I don't think you are. I could see why your wife might think so too." I was 21 and naive as hell. Never should have said anything. I built a snow scorpion sculpture. I used ketchup for the red glowing eyes and everything on a particularly miserable day at a ski resort. The guests enjoyed my sculpture very much, management weren't so happy. I got fired for submitting my timesheets on Monday at 8 a.m. when I got into work. By policy, they were to be in by noon on Saturday, but my Fridays ended in the field, so I just did them on Monday mornings. My bosses didn't even look at them until noon on Tuesday, so it had zero impact on them. I drove home from being fired feeling relieved because of how unhappy I was at that job. They lowered my pay, so I started sleeping at work and do only half the task they wanted me to do. Took them 3 years to fire me. Worked in a DIY store. 10 minutes before my shift ended, I moved a pallet cage of paint cans slowly to the warehouse, and when I got in there, one of the sides came off along with half of the paint cans, which spilt all over. Anyway, there was about 2 minutes of my shift left, so I moved the pallet over the paint, covering it a bit, and went home. It was all caught on CCTV. Stealing narcotics. I was a nurse. 6 years clean now. Lost my nursing license though. It was a difficult lesson to learn, but it may have saved my life. Forgetting lunch. I was 18, working at a mall kiosk with a manager title even though I managed nothing for something like $8 an hour. Hours painted on the door, zero support or other employees to relieve for a break. The owner showed up while I had locked up to go get a bite to eat. Fired on the spot. Because my job is moving to Lisbon and I am not. Because my job was eliminated. This was code for getting rid of you and hiring someone to replace you at half the salary. Their scheme was less than a stellar success because the person they hired was an idiot and could not do it. The customers got severely pissed. They gave me $15,000 severance if I promised not to sue them. I took their money and still sued them for age discrimination. And won. It was 1973, working at Mickey D's. Redneck manager says go get a haircut, then you can come back. I didn't go back. Ponytails rule. I gave the fry guy an alcoholic beverage from the bar in a kid's cup. He used to hook me up with coconut shrimp and fiesta rolls. They fired both of us lol. I wonder how Jamar is doing nowadays. Told my boss I was doing too much work for not enough pay, that's why nobody stays. Was on the edge of a serious burnout and had a sick leave for 2 weeks. The day I returned, I got fired. This all after I had pretty much given my all for 5 years working 10-14 hours every single day, working from home and not having a private life at all. That's how I learned that you should never give too much at a job. It's just a job and they won't thank you for anything at the end of the day. I gave my employee meal to my mother. That's literally it. I didn't like eating the food there, so I had my mom bring me lunch and I just gave my employee meal to her. Apparently that was considered theft, so I was fired. I missed a lot of work because my wife got brain cancer. They called me in for a meeting and said sorry, we are downsizing and letting a lot of people go. They didn't fire anyone else, including a co-worker who was caught fabricating reports. I was in a really bad place when I took a job I knew I had almost no qualifications for. Maintenance repair guy at an apt complex. I have no fucking idea how to fix anything lol. Lasted a few months before they caught on. Tried my best to learn and watch YouTube videos, but I was taking Wasahari too long to do shit. Their official reason I'm not happy doing my job. The actual reason I wasn't happy doing other people's job on top of my own, and they didn't like that I spoke up. I gave my boss the middle finger. Reading during my lunch break, face with rolling eyes. I was fired from Panera as soon as I walked in the door for my first day of work. I showed up 10 minutes early and walked in 5 minutes before my shift started. The manager met me at the door and said I was being unprofessional and threatened to call the cops when I pushed for an explanation. Turns out the employees did lots of drugs while working and were probably high out of their minds. I was jobless for 3 years. Did lots of online work during that time. Finally got a job. Forgot I got a job. Got a letter from my employer informing me that I got fired after a week. I was a kid and just started at a local pizza place. I was let go couple weeks later because a pizza chef from Chicago had moved into the area and needed a job, so it was a business decision that I totally understood. Week later, went to go get my last check and asked how he was doing. The girl up front was like, pizza chef from Chicago. The only new hire was the manager's new GF. I was going on vacation to Japan. Gave 3 months notice. Boss fired me because my coworkers wouldn't cover my shift at a pizza place. I'm not cancelling my vacation that's been planned for a while just because people don't want me to not work for a week. Because I was reported for saying during a meeting that the current project is like a bunch of monkeys fucking a football. We formed a union and then the pandemic hit and they laid off all the unionized workers. I got fired all the time when I was working for my family company. I still had to show up the next day. For those who don't know, either working for family is either super easy or super tough. Usually,